After the inspection of books of account, we need to understand how long they need to maintain the books of account. A company maintains books of account, let us say, for a particular financial year. If it is 2019-20, the financial year, the financial statements or the books of account of 2019-20 should be maintained for how many years? The normal principle is 8. The books of account of a company, including the books and papers, records, registers, shall be maintained for a period of 8 years. Now, if the company has naturally been in existence for a period of less than 8 years, then it shall be the actual period of existence. So the actual period of existence or 8 years, whichever is less. But although the law says 8 years, section 128 says 8 years, companies normally maintain it for a much longer period. God knows when, what may be required. So this is the provision as far as the Companies Act is concerned for companies. Remember, we have a similar provision under the Income Tax Act. Maintenance of books of account for an assessee carrying on or having income under the head, profits and gains of business or profession. Remember, all these provisions must be read together. It's a harmonious construction which is required. So the books of account of a company shall be maintained for 8 years or the period of actual existence as a principle, as a legal provision. Now this may be longer if the central government proposes it in a particular case. I would like to connect this one particular provision of maintenance, period of maintenance for books of account, with the provisions under the chapter Inspection, Inquiry, Investigation. Even there is a concept of preservation of books of account. We are coming to that much later. Preservation of books and papers of a company which was under inspection, inquiry, investigation. Interestingly, there is no period prescribed. It only says the government may prescribe for a period for which the books and papers, records, accounts, statements shall be maintained by a company. However, 128 specifically prescribes for 8 years. 8 years has been 8 years for a pretty long time now. Even the Companies Act 1956 used to prescribe for that. So the incidental or the additional provision here as an incentive for the government, of course, not for the company. That is what must be understood. The central government may prescribe for a longer period or a longer duration than 8 years. If it is prescribed, you may have to follow that. A company cannot hide or a company cannot take shelter under the provision that we have been asked to maintain books of accounts for 8 years, we will do it only for 8 years. Government cannot prescribe for a longer period. No. The central government is above the law. They are the ones who make the law. So section 128 empowers the central government to prescribe for a longer period or a longer duration for companies to maintain books of account. So the company has to maintain its books, remember, of a financial year for 8 years. I'm very careful with my prepositions. However, the central government has the power, they have the authority to enhance the period if they feel it necessary for a particular company or for a particular class of companies. So that is about the period of maintenance of books of accounts. So we know various aspects about books now. The nature of the books of account, the place where they must be maintained, the mode or the method in which they must be maintained, inspection. And now comes period of maintenance of books of account. Let me remind you of the vocabulary, the correct statutory vocabulary. Books of account are kept or maintained. Financial statements are prepared and presented. Now 128 also deals with a very interesting aspect about a company which has branches, divisions or departments spread across, whether on the same premises or not. Where a company has branches, it carries out its business operations through one or more branches. What about the books of account of the branches? Of course, whatever were prescribed as true and fair, double entry system, mercantile basis will apply to the branches also. But then comes the question of inspection of the books of account of a branch and the provision of books of account by the branch to the head office. So if a company has a branch, let us split it up for analysis. Branch within the country and branch which is foreign. A company which has one or more branches within India, whatever provisions we have seen so far with respect to books of account of the company will apply to books of account of the branch naturally. I don't have to make any specific provisions for them. A branch of a company is deemed to be an extension of the company itself. So the branch shall maintain adequate books of account. Access for inspection will be the same as the books of account of the company. For example, the board of directors, the auditors, a statutory authority. So that will, whatever applies to the company will apply also to a branch which is within India. If the branch is outside India, if it's a foreign branch, we may have to slightly deviate from our provisions. I can't see my board of directors traveling to this foreign country every week to inspect books of account. Or the auditors to go to the foreign country, inspect, make accounts, make what you could say, copies of those statements, come here and prepare the consolidated financial statements of the company, head office with the branch. Nothing like that. If there is a foreign branch of a company, the provision is simple. You just have to send summarized returns of the transactions at the branch to the company, to the head office, within reasonable intervals of time. The Act doesn't say 1 week, 1 month, 2 months, quarter, half year. Nothing. So in the case of a foreign branch, the books of account or a summarized extract of them, summarized returns of the transactions in the branch shall be sent to the head office in India at prescribed or frequent intervals of time. You decide what is suitable. That depends on the size and the nature of business of the company. And as long as the auditors, the registrar, the board of directors have an access to inspection of them, that is sufficient. Now here again, I would like to make a harmonious construction. Connect this with audit of accounts of a foreign branch. If there is a foreign branch, what are the rights, responsibilities, liabilities, duties, obligations of the company's auditors with respect to books of account of the foreign branch? That is auditing completely. But that also has to be coupled with this when you study, when you analyze. So the books of account of a branch does not have any separate distinctive provision. If the branch is within India. But if the branch is outside the country, it's a foreign branch, then all that we require the branch to do or the head office to do is to provide for some system of communicating a summarized returns, a summarized system of the accounts, transactions, etc. at the foreign branch to the head office at reasonable intervals of time. That would be sufficient statutory compliance. So that is about the books of account of the branches of a company. Then comes penalty provision. There are so many conditions prescribed here. For example, a company shall maintain its books of account in order to disclose a true and fair view. What if it is not true and fair? What if double entry is not followed? What if it is not on mercantile basis? What if the subsidiary company's books of accounts are not allowed inspection to the board of the holding company? A default under section 128, in other words. What is the penalty for a default on any of the prescribed provisions of section 128 in relation to books of account? I am sorry to say that the examination, the institutes expect you to memorize the penalties, the fine, the period of imprisonment. What is the cost of a default? As professionals, you are expected to know. And here it is section 128(7), subsection 7, which provides for a penalty. Obviously, penalty provision would be the last. There are so many provisions laid down. You are supposed to comply with them. If you do not comply with them, what would be the penalty? Here the penalty is 50,000 rupees or 1 year of imprisonment or both. My advice or suggestion to you is, at the end of the whole study of company law, make up a table. Under what section, what provision, which is defaulted on, what is the penalty? So column 1, section. Column 2, provision. Column 3, monetary fine. Column 4, imprisonment period if it is applicable. And column 5, whether it is either or both. Here it is either or both. So penalty for non-compliance with the provisions of section 128 is a fine of rupees 50,000 or imprisonment, jail for 1 year, or both, depending on the gravity of the offense. For example, not following the mercantile system is a less severe, it's a less graver offense than not allowing access to inspection of books of a subsidiary to the directors, to a director appointed by the holding company. So this is the penalty provision for a default on any of the provisions relating to books of accounts of section 128. Pretty simple. When we come to financial statements, it's not going to be this easy. So we can split up the provisions on books of accounts into true and fair view, double entry, mercantile system, inspection, soft copies, branches, and the penalty. So with that, we wind up on the books of account. What we take up next is the financial statements.